Now, in this part of the video, we're getting onto some questions out of the textbook and showing you how to um, input all this information into the calculator. And I'm guessing while we're watching this, we've been doing a little bit of this. So there's a few things I can show you, and I find I'm doing the same things most times. And if I just think about it this way, I get most of the information I need automatically, and then I can come back and answer these questions down here. So we're told this manufacturer of soft drinks is, I imagine there's a production line, and there's a little bit of variation in how the cans get filled. So they're not all exactly 375 mils, and I can see that from the data. I'm told there's 16 cans here. Rather than count them all up, I'm thinking I've got two rows of 8, so 2 times 8, 16. So my job now is to get that into the calculator. And what I would say to you as you go through and do this, double check when you get to this point here that your 16th row is your last data point here. Because if there's a mistake here, there'll be, you've maybe missed something or done something like that. And it's worth double checking quickly that the actual values are correct, because here's another simple mistake. We can just enter the value in incorrectly. So my next tip here is I would write something useful. So volume of a can. Okay, that is my variable name, and that'll appear on my box plots and my charts and everything. So I want to do that and make it a useful name. I could just be lazy here and just write V. And then on the other screens, I might lose track of what I'm actually doing. So what I've got to say to you now, and I do this in this order, like almost like autopilot by this stage, is that I'll just show you on the calculator screen over here. Now I'm going to hit menu. I want some stats, calculations. Whoops, and I pressed the wrong thing. So menu for stats calculation. I want the one variable statistics here. That's going to give me my summary. I've only got one list there, so click OK on that. Now, here we go. We've got volume of can. That's what I called it. And I'm checking here that it's going to return the data, which column it's going to return the data to. So that's the second column. I could come in here and change this to C for the third column. And well, I'm going to hit OK on that. So see, there's the third column. It's put everything in here. And so I've got everything that I need. The one thing that I might check here, and clicking on here, I can also see it down here, that the variable name here and what this summary is for the volume of the can. So that all looks good. I've got the mean there. I've got the standard deviation of the sample there as well, so I can read those things off directly. I'm just checking that the summaries used the 16 data points that I had. Got the minimum, Q1, medium, Q3, and maximum value there. So I've got my 5 figure summary all there just as numbers. So having done that, I could probably answer the question from there. But what I do next is I go, maybe I shouldn't do it like that. I should go document, insert. I want a data and stats page. There's all my values. I'm going down here, and volume of the can is the one I want. So I get a dot plot, and I can see how the spread of the data from there. I can come in here and change the plot type, and I'm turn it into a histogram, which is only going to do this, right? Now, if things are off the page a little bit, you can always go window zoom to the data, and that's not going to change it here, but sometimes it does. Now, the other thing I'm noticing is that my bin settings need changing a little bit. So let's do that. Let's fix that up. menu, plot properties, histogram properties, and I want to change the bin settings and equal bin width. I might call that, let's call it 1. So, and I'm just going to set this to 0. And that'll align things as they need to be. So let's double check here. If I use a mouse, I'll get the value for that, and that lines up. 56, 54, 56. So that all looks good. Now I can come in here and go menu, and I can change it to a box plot here, but I tend to leave the data there, and because it's a simple job of just adding in a new data and stats page, this time I'm going to turn it into a box plot. So menu again, and we're going to go through the same things. We're going to call this a box plot. And this time I'm checking if there's any outliers. And if I mouse over, I get the same values again that I had back in the lists and spreadsheets page. So those values there are all appearing on the box plot. Now I'm in a position I can answer those questions. So let's go back and have a look at the other question that I think is useful in terms of working on our calculator skills. This comes in the latter part of the chapter, where we're looking at the effect of alcohol on coordination of 20 people. So again, I'm just double checking 2 rows of 10. So there's 20 there and there's 20 here. My advice here is just read the question before you jump on the calculator. We're going to set up some box plots, and we're going to write a report looking at where the centers are, so the medians, and we need the spread. So we're going to need the IQRs, and we're going to look for some outliers here. So knowing this, what I would encourage you to do is when you get on your calculator, and I just need to go to where I've got this set up. I've got it set up here. And I've put all the data in 2 columns. And again, just check. Yeah, so I've got 20 entries in there. And I set this up as 0. I'm going to call this variable 0 BAC for blood alcohol content. And I'm going to call this 1. I might call it alcohol. Okay, something meaningful. Now I've got 2 columns here with data in it, and my thinking is I always want to do the same sort of stuff. So once I've checked the data and made sure I've got it in here correctly, I want to get a printout of all the stats. So I'm going through this again, and this time I've got 2 lists, and they're going to give me the summary side by side, which is really useful. So my first list was 0 alcohol content, and the other group were affected by alcohol. So where am I going to put all that data? It's going into the next column, C, and that's okay. It's not going to write over anything. So I hit OK on that, and I get everything that I need. So let's just double check. Here's the really important stuff that I would say to you. Just double check that that variable corresponds to 0 alcohol content, and you can move hopefully you can do this. You can move these and see what's going on here. Okay, so that looks good. I've got my mean. I might drag this one back in a little bit so we've got everything lined up here. I've got my mean for both of them. I've got my standard deviation and sample here, so I've got all those summary statistics there. Just checking that I've got 20 data points, and then I get everything I need to answer these questions sitting in front of me here as numbers. Okay. Now, what you might want to do is jump in here, and we want to add a, oops, yes, we want to insert a data and stats page. So I'm going to come down here and I'm going to click on these guys here, get them lined up. And then I'm going to, with my mouse, come down here and add another variable down here. And this one will be the alcohol group. And so I get both things sitting there side by side. And once I get to this stage, it's up to me. I can come back in here, and if I want to turn it into a histogram, I can. Okay, and I can play around with the bin settings and get those lined up the way I want them to. So plot properties and equal bin widths. So I just might change this, leave the width as 2 and the alignment to 0 here, so they'll all line up as they should. All right, that looks pretty good to me. Now, again, why don't I just leave that there, because I've got that sitting there, and that's useful. And this time around, repeat the whole process really quickly, and I'm going to add in, just got to be careful here when I click. Add the X variable, another one, and this one's for the alcohol. So I've got everything set up there. And this time I'm coming in here and I just want to change it to a box plot. And so this is useful because now I see one of my outliers here, and the question, I think if we go back to the question, asked us to identify any outliers. And in the group affected by alcohol, we've got one person here with a response time of 64 seconds or something. So that's the end of the tutorial, really, and that's what I'm trying to get you to help you see, is that for a lot of these questions, I'm doing the same thing over and over again. And here's my setup, if you like. What I'm trying to do all the time is, if I'm using my calculator to answer a question, I'm often in a list and spreadsheets page, and I'm putting the data in, checking that it's all right, and then I'm grabbing a numerical summary of the data, because that could tell me everything I need to answer a question. And if I want a visual representation of what's going on, and here I'm a bit suspicious about this point here because that could be an outlier. So I'm looking at the spread of the data, looking at perhaps the most common category here, so the modal category perhaps, and I'm getting an idea of where the median and the mean are in these sets of data. And finally, the box plot gives me the same information again. So, and that sets me up really to answer the questions. And if we go back to the questions here, I'm in a really good position to write a report, and that's what they're asking you to do. So let's leave this tutorial there, and hopefully that helps you with your skills.